Welcome back. We're starting the USD part of the course now. This is part one, as you can see. And before we even start talking about what USD is, I'm going to recommend this. This link will also be provided with the video, but the vast majority of these lessons are based on this playlist. There's obviously more that is to do with game engine export, but the big secret about USD is once you've got it as a USD stage, you can pretty much read it in anything. So I would recommend, if you want to learn more about USD as well as what I'm going to show you, go to that link, watch that playlist. It doesn't take very long. What is USD? Easiest way to describe USD is that USD is a hierarchical system for laying out a scene. That is the absolute overview. And that's all it is. It is a system you can use to lay out objects in a scene, which means that once you save it, you can give it to any other artist, you can give it to any other engine, you can render it in anything, you can pass it around. It's used to share. The important thing to remember about USD is that it is hierarchical. It's about parents and children. Just like the outliner in Maya, very similar to how it's laid out. I should stop waffling and just get into it and show you. But before we start, I need you to know that all this is a hierarchical setup, and you have a parent object, you have a mesh in that object, a material in that object, something else in that object, a point instance in that object. They are all beholden to the parent, and you'll see that as we go through. Here we are in the PowerPoint, and we'll be exiting the PowerPoint shortly, but very quickly, this is what I mean by hierarchical. A USD stage is a 3D scene composed of USD layers. The stage is the parent. Everything is under the stage. Okay, so here's an example of a USD stage. Here are the layers in that stage. So you have the bushes, you have the little houses, and you have the monsters. And they are all under that stage. And you can read the paragraph if you like. What's really important is that it allows artists to simultaneously work on the same scene, make changes as they need, and try out different compositions without changing other artists. That's what it's designed to do, and it does it very, very well. For the gaming side of things, we're going to be hijacking it a bit and using it as a way to get things out of Bifrost, not just Maya, but Bifrost and into USD. I'll be teaching you USD concepts today. I'll also be teaching you Bifrost USD concepts. And they're slightly different because they are procedural USD concepts. So we'll get into that. So you can see here that we've got our stage and our layer 0. This is a prim. Okay, so the base level of USD is a prim. Inside that prim, so this is a primitive, prim for primitive, that sits in layer 0. It can contain other primitives, which create a hierarchy, a namespace hierarchy. So this primitive contains the body and the eyes. It can also contain attributes such as colors and transformation. So you're getting colors there and transforms there. So this is where we go into Bifrost and actually create ourselves a stage. Okay, so we have our usual happy, empty Bifrost framework that we start most lessons with. Let's create a graph because we're going to need that first. Now, there's a couple of things you should probably have set up before we start working with USD, and this is one of them here. This is the USD Layer Editor. This will show you what's happening in your stage as you can find that in Windows USD Layer Editor, and that will pop that up. Now, when it comes in, it'll come up like something like that. So if I close it, USD Layer Editor, and what I like to do is just drag that and put it next to my outliner. And that way I've got these things over here on the side. I've got lots of room for my Bifrost and my parameters and things. So we'll get to using this as we go through, but this is how I like to do it. So that's one thing that you'll need to have up. The other thing you'll need is your script editor, but we'll get to that later. Okay, so let's create a USD stage. Now, when I say let's create a USD stage, that's kind of a big thing. What we're going to need first is things to put into the stage, a mesh, for example, because USD doesn't exist on its own. It exists to organize other objects. And in this case, we want a mesh. So let me import my mesh. And this is just my USD resources. Here's my empty Bifrost graph here. So I've got the monster and some things that we'll be getting to later. So let's just hide everything else. What we'll be working on is the monster, and because I imported it, it's brought in its namespaces. I personally like to get rid of my namespaces if I'm working on something like a tutorial. So you leave it there if you don't care, but if you do, this is how you get rid of it. You need to come in here and delete these and merge them with the root. Yep, not only do you get Bifrost tutorials, you get a little bit of Maya as well. So it's kind of a very well-rounded course. Don't forget to put that on your assessments. Thank you. So now we're back to something that looks a bit more familiar. We have our monster here. Our monster is just a mesh. This is Ying Ying's famous monster, able to be seen on YouTube and all kinds of other places. And as we do when we start working on a Maya asset in Bifrost, I'm going to hide it because I don't want to see the Maya confusing me with my Bifrost graph. So here are all my things I will be using for the USD video, but today I only want the monster. Let's bring the monster in and let's just make sure that's all working. There we go. Do we have wireframe? Yes, we do. That's great. Let's turn on anti-aliasing so that I don't make everybody's eyes fall out of their head with my horrible jagginess. And what we're going to do is the world's simplest USD setup. Okay, so let's get rid of that. There's our monster. Monster is still there. First thing we need to do is define a USD mesh. Now, a USD mesh is a USD prim. There are lots and lots of different kinds of USD prims. And if you have Bifrost USD loaded and a USD plugin loaded in your Maya, which you should have, then you're going to get all of this stuff here. So I want to just define a USD mesh. There we go. Here's our first USD node. And what this is doing is it's taking our Maya mesh and defining a USD mesh with it and putting through all of the things that we need to put through for that USD to work. Before we start, and I'm going to say this over and over and over again, in USD, naming is super, super important. If you have two things with the same name, if you, like me, forget to change that name, it's only going to show you one of them. So if you forget to change that name 17 times, instead of 17 objects, you're going to get one object. So just be aware of that. What we have here is, this is defining a mesh from a Maya mesh. So it takes a mesh. We put the mesh in there. That's fine. I can plug this into the output. I'm not going to see anything because that's not how USD works. What we have to do is get all of this into a stage before we'll be able to see anything. So I'm going to very quickly set that up now. So let's change that name to body, just so we can see what we're doing. So now we have a USD mesh with the name body. Yes, the slash is important. We'll get to that in just a second when we talk about hierarchy. And then I'm going to define a USD prim. And so this is a container to hold the monster. So a good name for that is monster. You have lots of different kinds of USD prims. This is not this is a very short list of USD prims. You'll be using Xform a lot. So you can think of this as a container that holds the body and anything else we want to put into it. And just like a group in Maya, we can translate that container and everything inside it will translate with it. We can set attributes on that container. It will set all of the attributes inside that container. So how do we get things into the container that is called a prim? Well, that isn't. In this case, I'm just going to call it an Xform or transform because that's what it is. We've changed our name, super important, and it's not the same name as that. So let's plug this into children. And once we get this hooked into a stage, which is what we're about to do, you'll see that this is going to become the parent primitive for the monster. Before I go any further though, what I would like to show you is how you can change an attribute on something. So I'm going to come down to my attribute definitions, and the USD nodes and some of the arrow nodes too actually have this little context menu, which is really super helpful. This shows you the kinds of nodes that you can create here, and it will create them for you. So let's go display color. Define USD display color. It does pretty much what it says on the box. So that's the difference between a mesh, a primitive, and an attribute. Okay. Bear with me. This will make a lot more sense shortly. If we want to change the color on that, and I realize we're not seeing anything in our Bifrost just yet. I promise it's coming. We're going to go off slide 8, 0.1823 and 0.4518 and 0.5431. Those are the colors of our body. Okay, so once we've got that set down, we've got our parent primitive set. which is this Xform here, monster. This is our child primitive. Let's get this onto a stage so we can actually see it. So that's pretty easy. We're going to create a stage, create USD stage. And you've got a couple of things to fill out here. So this layer here is where do you want to save the USD file? Now I have a USD folder which lives in my project's default USD. And I tend to put anything in there. You can use a temp folder. You can put it wherever you like. It's your system. So I'm going to call this monster.usd. And you can see I've got some choices here. USD, USDA, USDC. USDC, I believe, is a compacted binary. USD is just a binary. And USDA is an ASCII file. We'll be using this a bit later. But what's really good is that, and you can see I've got some USDAs here. If I save this as monster USDA for now, I'll be able to show you a different thing that as a tech artist, you'll probably be really interested in. So I just need to set the file format I'm saving it in based on what I give as an extension. So we'll go like that. So and you can see there it is. The other thing on here is layer index. So you need to think about hierarchies and you need to think about layers. If the layer index is -1, that is the root layer. That is the bottommost layer, always. -1 is always the root layer. You can start adding to this stage as different layers. So let's add something to the stage with add to stage, right? And you can see here that I've got enable, that makes sense. Parent path, which you can manually set if you wanted to say, choose a stage that you've got somewhere else to add to, for example. Layer index. So right now, this is all being added to the root layer, and that's fine. For this, we're learning how to do it. That's all good. But you may have a situation where, say, one of you is working on the environment, one of you is working on the props to go into that environment, and another one of you is working on something like animated flags that live in that environment. Those could all be on separate layers, and you would never touch each other's work. That's how you could all work on the same file without overwriting each other. Now, it's pretty self-explanatory. Stage goes into stage, and your parent primitive, which is this guy, goes into the prim definitions. Still not seeing anything. Not seeing anything because we are not outputting it. So now, if I output this, watch what happens. We get our monster. We get this thing turning up, whatever that is, and our layer editor has things in it all of a sudden. This is now a USD file. So it's now a USD file called that, living in that directory that has this mesh in it. And this mesh is a child of this prim, and this prim is in this stage. How it works, what this thing is how USD works, right? So I can now hide the Bifrost. What I'm doing in the Bifrost graph is still affecting what's happening in Maya, but what's actually happening is the Bifrost is going out to Maya USD. So we can now open up this Maya USD proxy, and we can see all of the things we've just done. So that is our stage. That's our monster. That's that transform there. So that's the parent of our body. You see how that works? So I've got a child, a parent, and a stage. That is the basics of USD. So there's a couple of things we need to do in here. And the USD Layer Editor is a Maya thing. It's not a Bifrost thing, which means we'll probably need to get our attribute editor up here. There we go. So we've hidden our Bifrost. My Bifrost lives there. But we've got our attribute editor. If I select this layer here, if I select the USD proxy shape, which is how Bifrost gets it across to Maya, we've got some settings here that we can deal with. Don't worry about them at the moment, but to start with, really all you need to do is make sure that shareable is on. So that allows you to directly access the stage in the USD Layer Editor and set the target layer. Our layers disappeared here. We've just got the one layer and it's a target. That's what these circles mean. And the USD Layer Editor is telling me that there's edits and I need to save them. Now, this isn't going to be a full lesson on Maya USD. I'm just going to show you what we need to get Bifrost USD working, because honestly, this is the best and easiest way I have found to get Bifrost out to the Unreal Engine. Or Unity, works with both. So follow along, and there are many, many resources which I'll share with this video that will help you get a better and deeper knowledge of Maya USD, because Bifrost USD talks to Maya USD. Maya USD does all the work. So once we've done that, our monster is missing something. Our monster is blank and blind and can't see anything. So let's get the eyes in. This is where I'm going to show you how you can use the hierarchy to your advantage. Let's go back to Bifrost. There we go. Let's organize a little bit just so that we know what we're doing. And I'm going to use backdrops for that. So we'll make a backdrop. And this is child prim, body of the monster. So what we need to do here is give the little guy some eyes. Now, easiest way to do that, create a little mesh sphere. This is going to be our, what should we say? Let's make it our left eye, okay? So we'll go through that again. We're going to create the mesh sphere and we're going to define USD mesh. Now, let's be careful while we go. We'll call this left eye. That's fine. There's our mesh. And right now, this mesh is going to be at 0, 0, 0. That's the position it's at. This doesn't change that. This will take the mesh in at whatever position it is in. So what I'm going to need to do is add a transform here. So if I go create node here, define USD transform. And this will be the transform for the left eye. And I'm just going straight off the PowerPoint here. So we're going to go. And that's going to do a scale and a translation of that eye. We've got our left eye. We've got our body. Those are all child primitives. What I can do now is plug the left eye into the parent primitive, the Xform primitive. So if I plug that in there, and somewhere we should have, there we go, we should have a little eye. Now, be nice if that was black. So put that in a display color like that, and I'm just going to set them all to 0. Nice little black eye there. Now we need a right eye, and that's pretty easy as well. So let's just grab that, that, and that, copy those, paste them. Let's just change the name. And of course we'll need to change the transform because we don't want the left eye to be right on top of the right eye. That should be as easy as reversing that. And let's plug that in to our master. Again, we have there's our eye, but still not black. We just need to put this USD color into the attribute definitions. And there we go. Now these are just going straight into the parent primitive. What if I wanted to make them editable, I guess? Would make a bit more sense to define a primitive just for the eyes. So why don't we just call this eyes? And we can put these into the children here. Like that. And then just break those connections. And you can see as we're doing this, our hierarchy here is transforming. So here's our monster, and inside the monster is the body and the eyes. Inside the eye is the left eye and the right eye. What this allows us to do is I can take another USD transform here, and we can move the eyes as well. We can move the eyes around a bit. We can scale the eyes. And you can see here that the scale on the children, 0.1, is being set actually on the child nodes, but I can scale all of those nodes up by myself there, like if I want to. So that's just to give us another level of transformation, should we want to. So let's grab all of these guys, put them into a backdrop, and we'll call this, just like the PowerPoint, child prim, eyes of the monster. Which, you know, is starting to sound like some sort of B movie, but that kind of fits with the aesthetic. That's pretty good. So it's at this point, we've pretty much made our first USD asset. It's a monster, right? Our next question, of course, is where do we go from here? How do we get this out? And you can see the components still. You can see there's the stage, USD proxy shape. There's the monster, which corresponds to this transform here. There's the, open up, there's the body, which is this mesh. And here are the eyes, which is this. So yeah, our very next question is, how do we output this? First thing I wanted to talk to you, before we do an output, I wanted to show you something else too. If I select this guy and right click, print to script editor. I said we'd be looking at our script editor. And there it is. This here, from about there, from about there down. This is the USD file that it's writing out. So here's the mesh body, which corresponds to mesh body here. There are the eyes, the transform for the eyes. There's the monster transform there. So you can actually look at the USDA output in your script editor, just to make sure everything's doing doing what it should. And there's going to be a few things about this that we'll talk about when we talk more about game export. You can view your USD raw file in your script editor like this, which is super, super handy. So the last thing to do is we need to talk about getting this out. How do we output this? Well, we have a compound for that. And that's pretty simple. That's like save USD stage. That's exactly what it says it is. It takes a stage in and outputs it again, but it allows you to save it. And this is where we start talking about the game output stuff. So let's go through that straight away. Let's just plug that in and plug that in. Now this isn't enabled at the moment. It's not going to save anything, and it doesn't have a file name. So let's find somewhere to put it. I'm going to put it in my USD directory. You can put it wherever you like, and we'll call this monster USD lesson 8, because this is maybe week 8. What about week 8? Week 8. Okay, and we're going to make it a USDA, because it allows us to edit it or look at it or whatever we want to do. So what we have to do now is enable that. It has now saved to disk. If I go to my USD folder, there it is. It is saved. And what's really nice is if I was to say come back to the body, and let's just change this color a little bit. So let's just make it a little more blue like that, and a little less green like that. Come back to my USD folder, and well, you don't know what time it is. It's now changed. What happens is that if you make any changes down the line here, this will save it. Okay, so you need to know some of the settings here. Is that on or off? Where's that file going? Is that path a relative path? So I'll get back to that one. Does it have a default prim? For games, these are the important ones. Enable meters per unit. This takes the Maya unit that you're working in, and I happen to know that I'm working in centimeters right now. And it says how many meters do you want per that unit, and Unreal works in meters. So I'm going to set that to 1. So 1 Maya unit here becomes 1 meter in the USD file. And then you have enable up axis and up axis. Unreal is Z axis up. Maya is Y axis up. This is telling whatever you're outputting to inside the USD file is telling that program what axis is being used as up. So this is now done and saved. Let's have a look at it in the Unreal Engine. And here we are in Unreal. I have just made a very basic level, which has got nothing but a floor plane in it, and whatever Unreal decides to put in for the lighting. Now, you'll need the USD plugin enabled. So if I go to plugins, which is an edit, search for USD, This is a plugin from Epic Games, so you don't need to download it or anything. It comes with the engine, but USD Importer is the plugin that we want to use. I'm using Unreal 5.11 at the moment, which will work fine. So we'll 5.2, so I think even 4.9 will work well. So right now we have this window here, USD stage, like that. That's not what I wanted to do. Let's put that back down there. This comes with the USD plugin, and that lives in virtual production, I think. Yeah, USD stage right there. What this allows me to do is load a USD file into Unreal. So let's load our file. File open, monster, open. There he is. There's the monster we just built in Bifrost USD at the right size with this colors, everything like that. It's that easy. And what's really nice now is if I go back to Bifrost and I don't know, what should we do? Let's make should we make his eyes a little bigger? Yeah, let's make his eyes a little bigger. So we'll go 0.2. We'll just make one eye bigger so he looks a little confused. And let's change the color to a sort of greenish yellow. Now you remember I had save stage set up and it's enabled. So when I made those changes, it's made the changes to the file. If we come back into Unreal and just reload that file, he's got one eye bigger than the other and he's gone green. This is the power of USD, and this is the power of getting Bifrost into USD. It's not quite a link yet. It's not quite a live link. That's going to take some work by Epic and by Autodesk, but it's close and it's very, very fast. So just like we output our vertex animation, so our flags and things, this is sort of the guts of that system. This is a static mesh that we're outputting, and it comes into Unreal as a static mesh. So here's monster. This is the USD. I've loaded it through the USD stage, and you can see here, that is the prim. Our hierarchy is preserved. There's our body, and there's our eyes. Our hierarchy is preserved from Bifrost into Unreal. Yeah. Now I can delete him. I can delete the whole stage like that. So I can actually take my monster USD file and just drag it into the content browser. It's going to ask me where I want to put that. I'll just leave it in content for now. And then it asks me what I want to import. Do I want to import all of the monster, just the body, so I can turn the eyes off if I want to? I can choose what I want to come in. I can change my render context, so which set of stages to use when passing. So what material purpose, all of this kind of thing, which you can set up in your USD file if you like, and we'll import that. Doesn't look too good just yet, but here's our static mesh. Let's drag that in. There he is. There's our static mesh there. If I select that, it comes in as a static mesh component. So it's all basically been collapsed down to one mesh. But it does allow me to come into here, go collision. Let's do simplified collision. Maybe too simplified. Do auto convex collision might be better. Or, you know, just the old fun thing where we go complex collision is simple. Like that. We save that. So now he's got a collision mesh on him. And I can presumably jump into the game. And I won't run straight through him. There you go. Big old monster. Looking at me with his giant eye. So that's the very basic USD. Let's move on from there. And in the next section, we're going to talk about something very cool as well, which is USD variant sets.